Hi, boys and girls. I would like to share a great story with you. It's called Jingle Bells, How the Holiday Classic Came to Be. Written by John Harris and illustrated by Adam Gustafsson. Jingle Bells. How the Holiday Classic Came to Be. I'm going to turn this light off and see if I can take that glare away. Hot. James Lord Pierpont felt his starched shirt sticking to his back. How could it be this hot in November? Christmas was only a month away, but here in Savannah, Georgia, it was still sweltering hot. As he walked up the aisle of his church, broken glass crunched beneath his boot. He spotted a brick on a nearby pew. Not again, he sighed. Lily, be careful. Why would anyone break our windows? His daughter asked. Well, some people don't like our church because we don't believe in slavery, Mr. Pierpont said. Someone is probably angry because our congregation has 4 members who once were slaves. This story takes place a long time ago in the 1800s. Lily knelt to help her father clean up the broken glass. A sticky breeze blew through the broken window. It is so hot here, said Mr. Pierpont. At this time of year in Boston, it would already be cold and crisp, and one morning you would wake up and the ground would be covered with snow. What's snow like exactly? Asked Lily. Mr. Pierpont shook his head sadly. His own child had never seen snow. Well, the air feels sharp, he told her. You can see your breath. There's nothing in the world like sitting in a snug little sleigh beside a friend, watching the snow-covered world race by. You'd have a nice warm brick at your feet, not one crashing through your window. The door opened, startling them both. Why, Mr. Pierpont, I had no idea you would be here. A stately woman stood in the doorway. Behind her, almost hidden from view, was a little girl with deep brown skin. Pierpont smiled. He admired this woman. 4 years earlier, she had taken this child into her home. Good afternoon, Mrs. Fitzhugh. Miss Esther. Take care not to step on the broken glass. What happened, Mr. Pierpont? Mrs. Fitzhugh asked. Another brick through the window, I'm afraid. Oh my, she said. I don't understand how some people can be so mean-spirited, especially at this time of year. Mr. Pierpont sighed and turned to Esther. I like the flower in your hat, he said with a wink, just like someone else's. I hope we're not interrupting, said Mrs. Fitzhugh. We're here to pick up the flower vases. Pierpont seemed puzzled. For the Thanksgiving concert, or have you decided to cancel it? She glanced toward the brick on the pew. Please, Mr. Pierpont, we must have our concert, said Esther in a small voice. We always enjoy singing your new song. I suppose I've been too worried to start working on it yet, said Mr. Pierpont. Anyway, it's much too hot to think about the winter holidays. He stared out the window, lost in thought. Esther, he said finally, have you ever ridden on a sleigh or heard the sound of sleigh bells? The little girl shook her head. I don't think Lily has either. His eyes lit up. just a minute. I think he's getting some ideas for his new song. Mr. Pierpont climbed the stairs to the balcony where the church pipe organ stood. He sat down and tapped a key 3 times. Then he did it again. Sleigh bells sound a bit like that, he sang along. Here we go, here we go. Mrs. Fitzhugh looked up at the balcony. So musical, she called. Jingling bells, riding in a sleigh. What fun that must be. Mr. Pierpont played these 3 notes again. It is fun, here we go, jingling bells. He paused, then repeated the notes. Jingle bells, jingle bells, jingle bells. That's what they sound like. Lovely, said Mrs. Fitzhugh. Lily, would you like to help us with those vases? I think your father has work to do. Mr. Pierpont played 3 notes, this time a little higher. What had Mrs. Fitzhugh said? Oh, what fun! Oh, what fun it is to ride! Then he put the phrases together. Jingle bells, oh, what fun, oh, what fun. He smiled to himself. Perhaps this was the beginning of the song he was looking for. What we all need right now, he thought, is something to lift our spirits. James Lord Pierpont got out some paper and a pen. Later that week, Mrs. Fitzhugh and a friend dropped by the church during choir practice. I'll be right back, Mr. Pierpont told the children. Behave while I speak with these ladies. You said you needed something? Asked Mrs. Fitzhugh. I'm going to need blossoms for the concert, he said. Lots of them, white blossoms. Where can we find them? By tomorrow, said Mrs. Fitzhugh. I'm not sure that's possible. There was a pause. Is something wrong with my hat, Mr. Pierpont? Mr. Pierpont smiled. Your hat, Mrs. Fitzhugh, has given me another idea. Look at her hat. Her hat has feathers. So maybe he's going to use feathers in his song. Who knows? Let's see what happens. On the night of the concert, the church was filled, even with the windows and the front door open. Ladies fanned themselves and men's starched collars wilted in the heat. At exactly 7:30, Mr. Pierpont strode down the aisle and faced his expectant audience. Every year at this time, he said, our children help us welcome the holiday season by performing a new song. Although we have all been disheartened by recent events, we think we've found a way to raise our spirits. Despite the heat, we'll try to help you experience the kind of weather we don't have here in Savannah, Georgia. I hope you enjoy us singing One Horse Open Sleigh. It was called One Horse Open Sleigh before it was called Jingle Bells. The congregation grew quiet, waiting for the music to begin. From somewhere outside the church, they heard a faint jingling. The sound grew louder and louder and louder, and people turned around in their seats, trying to see what was happening. 2 little girls in choir robes entered the church, shaking strands of bells. A murmur went around the room. How adorable! Aren't they beautiful? Mrs. Fitzhugh raised her hand to her mouth. Her little Esther looked so happy. The girls reached the front of the church and slowly turned to face the congregation. 8 other children, each one holding a small bag, filed in, and took their places behind them. From the organ loft, Mr. Pierpont called down to the congregation. This is the chorus of our new song. You'll only have to hear it once before you know how it goes. He played several notes by way of introduction, and the children began to sing. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Still shaking the bells, the children launched into the first verse. Dashing through the snow in a one-horse open sleigh. As the children finished the song, they opened their bags and threw handfuls of white feathers up in the air as high as they could. The congregation burst into applause. The white feathers represents the snow. What a great idea. Thank you so much, said Mr. Pierpont. When the commotion finally died down, feathers aren't snow, he said, but they're the best we could do. And I'm glad you enjoyed our new song. Let's hope it goes out the doors and windows of our church, even through the broken window, and reaches the whole world. And James Lord Pierpont was right. It did. And this last page here shows us a picture of Mr. Pierpont. It shows us the title page of the music that he wrote. It shows us the music. It shows us the landmark and the church in Savannah, Georgia, where this was written. So here we have how the holiday classic came to be, Jingle Bells. I'll play the song for you.